Is there a go live button? My public. Am I live? I can never tell if I'm live. Let me go check. Hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Do you guys hear me well? What's up, everybody? Internet God, what's up? Tripto, what's up? Caleb, what's up? Hey, look, we got the whole squad here. Kyle Forte, how's everything going? Josiah Farrell, what's up? Colt 1776 says a lot. How are you doing today, G? I'm doing well. I hope you guys are doing well as well. It's a beautiful week. We had a beautiful weekend here in New York City. It was 90 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. It was a beautiful, nice weekend. I hope you guys had a beautiful weekend as well. Somebody says it confirms the audio is good. Somebody also asks, why did you shave, bestie? The thing is, I end up getting haircuts or like shaving my beard when I get like drunk or a little bit stoned and look at myself in the mirror when I go to the bathroom and I'm like, that beard doesn't look good anymore. And I think it was Friday where I decided to give myself a nice little trim. I got that like 5 o'clock shadow going on right now. I look great regardless. All right. It looks like we got a couple of dozen people in here. I feel like we could get to the few topics that I had laid out for us today. I was originally going to go, like, I had a couple of written topics down on my handy dandy whiteboard behind me. Those are going to be topics for future live streams that I want to get to. I've actually teased this out in the past and I've never gotten to them. But I made a new list of topics that I think interest me. And when there isn't news, like current events news that I'm interested in talking about, I think I'm going to fall back on a couple of these topics. Here are the other topics that I'm going to talk about in future live streams. One of them is, which I thought was going to be interesting, was going to be a topic on, or talking about the flexibility of MAGA and America First. Another topic that I wanted to talk about was why a civil war is not going to happen in the U.S., because I know there's a lot of commentators online who like to beg the question a little bit, like imply a little bit that we're going to have another civil war. It's never going to happen. This might be an unpopular topic in some of the parts around here, but I also want to talk about the delusions of Stop the Steal and the repercussions for that we're still seeing today. And then there's also the New York mayoral race that I believe early voting begins in this week or next week. Early voting begins in New York City for what I believe we have a very consequential election. And then I have a couple other stories on the media where I just bitch about people in the media who are more successful than me that I don't like. So those are future topics. But today I wanted to first talk about like the breaking news that came out this past weekend. And NBC's headline here is Fauci's emails don't prove a Wuhan conspiracy, but raise further questions. So over this weekend, a few different news outlets filed a Freedom of Information Act. You might see people talking about this online sometimes. An FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act. And it's not a leak, but it gives the ability for citizens of the United States to request info that was previously private, but from our government, and that need to be released. So if you're a public official, in most of your capacity, you will eventually be forced to show, official documents so we could see what you were doing while you were working in that official capacity. Dr. Fauci's emails were demanded. We were able to see Dr. Fauci's emails. And look, there's a whole fucking mess. All these emails were a fucking mess. these emails were like ranged from like as close to, as recent as like a month ago to like over a year ago when the pandemic initially broke out. We were able to see some interesting emails between Dr. Fauci and some other influential figures in the United States and in our government. One of those being Mark Zuckerberg. It was interesting because Mark Zuckerberg's emails to Fauci was kind of praising him and asking Fauci if there's anything that that Zuckerberg could do to help him. I don't know if Fauci actually responded to that one, but in these emails, it's just like a couple of people plucked out a couple of emails of Fauci saying that that masks aren't effective, or they are effective one day, and he flip-flops about this in private, just as he did in public. Fauci flip-flopped publicly on the masks. He did so also in his emails. Fauci publicly flopped on social distancing, which he also does in his emails. But there's a couple of points that this NBC article talks about, specifically with the lab leak, the so-called lab leak, Wuhan conspiracy. I remember even on the early months of the pandemic, there were a few early reports that there was questions about the COVID-19 actual genome and how it appeared to be manipulated. It seemed as though some gain of function research was used on COVID-19, and then it was eventually leaked. That was a theory that was, posited early on by a few fringe figures, and one of the people who did posit this so-called lab leak theory was Donald Trump. And I believe once Donald Trump said that he thought this came from a lab and that subsequently called it the China virus, that led everybody in the media, who usually get their cues from Trump, and they get their cues from Trump by just literally doing the opposite or saying that Trump is wrong regardless with what he says. So the media will immediately try their hardest to discredit whatever Trump says, regardless of whatever Trump says. Trump could be right, but the media, is so enthralled and is made so livid by Trump that they just have to do the opposite because they need to make sure he looks wrong or dumb in every attempt that they have. So they were reflexively just anti-lab leak theory from the beginning, and subsequently called it a conspiracy theory because of of Trump suggesting that was the origins of COVID. And therefore, anybody who would kind of agree with Trump's lab leak theory or give any more credence to the lab leak theory was, subsequently labeled a conspiracy theorist. If I were to be talking about these things on YouTube maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months ago, there would be a nice little warning under the video. I could possibly even have my video taken down. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I know Facebook has been policing or moderating its page more closely when it comes to anything regarding COVID. Other social media platforms have been doing this as well, but I'm only thinking about Facebook specifically because I know Zuckerberg emailed Fauci about this. And one of those things that they used to purposefully throttle on these social media websites was this so-called conspiracy theory about this lab leak. The issue here becomes when the conspiracy is in fact true, and then all these social media platforms are in fact just censoring the truth. So that's where this gets a little bit more complicated. I'm going to read through a couple of paragraphs of this that I thought were interesting. So it reads, the title reads, Fauci's emails don't prove a Wuhan conspiracy, but raise further questions. Why were U.S. scientists so quick to dismiss the possibility of bioengineering as the potential origin of the COVID-19 virus? It was January 31st. A leading infectious disease expert, Mr. Anderson, had been examining the genetic characteristics of the newly emerging SARS-CoV virus. Some of the features potentially looked engineered. Anderson wrote in an email to Dr. Anthony Fauci, noting that he and other scientists all find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory. So this was way back in January of 2020, last year, that there were already questions being raised in their emails about this. But as you may remember, Dr. Fauci gave no credence to this theory even as he's only starting to give some credence to this theory in the past few weeks or past month or so. But back in January 2020, they had an inkling, a suggestion, some evidence that the genome isn't consistent with expectations from evolutionary biology. That's really just a polite euphemism for saying that this was man-made. But he added, we have to look at this much more closely, and there's still further analysis to be done, so those opinions could still change. Here's the cover-up. Here's me trying to cover my ass. We don't know what's going to happen. Look, I'm covering my ass. Further analyses still need to be done. Opinions could still change. And change they did. Just 4 days later, Anderson gave feedback in advance of a National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine letter that was later referenced in the prestigious Lancet Medical Journal to argue against the idea that the virus had been engineered and branded a conspiracy theory. So what is the issue here? They have some evidence that COVID-19 was inconsistent with the expectations from evolutionary theory, therefore man-made, but they'll go on to brand it a conspiracy theory. In his email, Anderson calls the ideas that the virus was engineered crackpot theories, writing, engineering can mean many things and could be done for basic research or nefarious reasons, but the data conclusively shows that neither was done. The initial email, which was released to the Washington Post and BuzzFeed this week under the Freedom of Information Act, has been seized on by conservative news organizations as a smoking gun, proving that top officials and scientists covered the origins of the COVID-19 virus. On its own, the emails doesn't prove that or any other conclusions. It does raise questions about why Anderson and other scientists came down so firmly in defense of the natural origins hypothesis. The U.S. government has since accused China of withholding significant information that has prevented a thorough investigation into how the virus has emerged, and U.S. intelligence officials, while seeing no evidence the virus was genetically modified, says the possibility that the virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan is one that they have not ruled out and continue to investigate. So this is a really interesting article. There's a lot of other really interesting there's thousands of emails. There's thousands of pages of emails. I obviously didn't read through all of them. You know, I saw some cherry-picked ones off of Twitter. I thought more often than not, they're not showing anything extraordinary. But in a couple of golden-egged emails, it does show that there are a lot of questions about what our so-called infectious disease experts are doing. Why should we trust them when they aren't telling us the whole story, when they know more information and then are misleading us down one path? The most obvious, a lot of this sort of begs the question, why are these infectious disease experts trying to cover for China or trying to make it seem as though it wasn't some gain-of-function research that led to COVID-19 and then it was passed on to maybe one of the workers and then leaked from the lab. One of the reasons why, this isn't confirmed, but one of the reasons I've been seeing floating around why Fauci and these other infectious disease experts don't want this story to get out is because, as I understand, there was a limited amount of funding from the United States that went into the Wuhan Lab Institute. That's not to say that the United States was therefore funding the Chinese government to produce a virus to, spread to the world. The American government gives out grants and we supply military aid to hundreds of countries all around the world. Reaching over a dollar amount of like 50 billion the way we support other countries and research around the world. But the issue is that Dr. Fauci and these other infectious disease experts rely on those funds, and those funds are used to supply their research studies. And if it comes out that, the so-called gain of research this gain of function research that we've been funding in a lab somewhere led to COVID-19, then obviously our funding to this will go nowhere. There will be a ton of criticism of this. All the infectious disease experts that were involved in any of, these labs or any of this research, there will be more regulation on them. They will receive less funding. There will be more scrutiny. Who the hell's going to want to invest in any gain of function research? Even though this happened in China and China probably irresponsibly led to the spread. who, that public opinion won't care about that. Public opinion will only see that COVID did exist and or was created and then spread in this lab that we funded with this research that is a little bit dangerous and probably something that we shouldn't be getting involved with, is what somebody in the public might argue. I wouldn't argue that, but all that really matters here is public opinion of this stuff. Moreover, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention while we're still trying to get to the bottom of whether or not this was a lab leak or whether or not whether or not it was a lab leak, but whether or not it was man-made or whether or not it escaped from a lab or whether or not it was in a wet market. Those things are important, and depending on which one of those, we will need to hold China to account for, on a spectrum from which one of these was actually the truth. But regardless of which one of those are actually true, China did other things that is nefarious and that we should hold them responsible for doing. For example, China knew also as early as January that there were people that were working in this lab that were getting sick and the sickness was spreading. They closed domestic flights for 3 months before they ended up closing international flights. So they didn't allow COVID to spread nationally as much as they did internationally after they knew about COVID being a thing. Also, they tried their hardest to cover and punish whistleblowers or any journalists covering the pandemic, providing accurate information about COVID, again, during the earliest days of the pandemic, which were key to trying to fight this. It's widely understood now that the countries around China, some of them who looked at China and disbelieved what they said the most, dealt the best with the pandemic. So that, among other reasons, is why China's acting nefariously. We should keep a close eye on them. They should be held responsible regardless of how their level of involvement in leaking this from a lab. But they did other things that's also very unkosher, very bad, and we will need to keep them and hold them to account for. That's my relatively quick take on this coronavirus stuff. I haven't been talking too much about the coronavirus stuff, even though this is the biggest story in the United States, because it's so hard to it's fatiguing. I'm tired of covering this. I'm tired of talking about COVID. I was out and about so much this weekend, covering a couple of different events, hanging out in the city. And dude, even around a lot of parts of Brooklyn, outside in the 90-degree weather, people are still wearing masks. As I understand, something I think it's 40% of people who are vulnerable in or just 40% of the population in New York City specifically is vaccinated, where we have an extremely low positivity rate of coronavirus, but people are still extremely panicked about this. And in large part due to the media. I think the media botched this. I think our public health officials did a terrible job throughout this entire pandemic with so many mixed messages. The goal of public health is trying to, send out a clear, concise message that is easy to follow and is consistent. If you flip-flop your public health message to the public, there's no reason for the public to trust you. You lose credibility more and more. And it appears from, these Freedom of Information Act Fauci emails that, Fauci didn't really know what's going on. He's flip-flopping publicly, he's flip-flopping privately. And I don't know why any citizen, anybody would really have faith in our public officials at this point with the amount that they mislead us. They have so many conflict of interests here. It's hard to trust these guys. It really is. That is the quick COVID take. But now I wanted to get to a little bit more happy, fun content, because this coronavirus stuff, it's not happy. It's not enlightening. It's not positive. Hearing about how we're being lied to, hearing about, just the conspiracy theorist rhetoric. Nowadays, if you're called a conspiracy theorist, more likely than not, you're spot on. That's what we've come to. We exist in a society now where conspiracy theory is a euphemism for hidden truth. But let's move on to our next story. I wanted to talk a little bit now about one of the most interesting Democratic mayoral candidates in this upcoming primary that we have in New York City. So I think there's a dozen candidates, only 3 or 4 that matter. the 3 or 4 that matter are names that you might have heard of already. Leading in the polls are Andrew Yang. You guys might have heard of Andrew Yang. He is a former Democratic presidential nominee. He's known for like the UBI and stuff, and I guess kind of being Asian. There is Eric Adams, which is an African-American individual who is well known as a so-called progressive cop. I say so-called because all the progressives hate him for it, but a lot of the liberals praise him. There's also Catherine Garcia. Eric Adams is also the current Brooklyn borough president. Catherine Garcia is the third person you should know about. Catherine Garcia, she was like the sanitation head or something. And she was actually running in the low single digits for weeks until the New York Times actually endorsed her. After this New York Times endorsement, she shot up to become a contender. And this actually also kind of, I hate using the word red pilled because I actually think it's a really lame phrase, but it red pilled me to realize how much influence the New York Times actually has. So Catherine Garcia was this irrelevant candidate nobody gave a shit about, polling in the single digits, and then, you know, the New York Times endorses her and she shoots up to be a first place contender. So those are the 3 main contenders. But then, those are all the serious guys, the serious contenders, whatever. And actually, there's a couple of other progressives that are polling in low single digits. For example, Diana Morales and Maya Wiley. AOC actually just endorsed Maya Wiley. I don't understand why she endorsed Maya Wiley, because Maya Wiley she's a former MSNBC contributor, like one of their on-air analysts, but Maya Wiley has no shot at winning the Democratic primary. She's polling, you know, in the single digits, and I don't know why AOC is going to endorse a losing candidate. What's the purpose of endorsing a failing campaign? Because doesn't that only make your endorsement look more weak? Like nobody gives a shit. Like, look, AOC, good job, you endorsed this Maya Wiley lady, but you know, she's definitely gonna lose. I'll put a lot of money on her losing, but those are the candidates. It's probably going to be between Yang, Eric Adams, and Catherine Garcia, maybe Scott Stringer too, but we don't need to get into that. Again, there are a lot of candidates, but those are the main top 3. But now let's talk about the guy who's receiving the least amount of support, and that is Democratic mayoral candidate / rapper Paperboy the Prince. And this guy, you know, this was the coolest rally I ever fucking covered. I was so happy to cover this because he hosted a smoke out. This is a smoke out for justice outside City Hall. So this was yesterday at 4:20. Look, he set up this dope looking, you know, flyer. You know, this isn't, it was just a nice, you know, it was a nice little event to bring people together. At the event, on Paperboy's Instagram story, they were actually, like ahead of the event, they were actually advertising that they will be handing out joints at the smoke out. And once I knew that, your boy had to get a little bit early to confirm the joints were being handed out. So this is what I got outside City Hall. This is a nice little doob. It was a pre-roll. And whenever you get a pre-roll, you definitely want to, at the very least, look inside of it. You know, who knows what the fuck could be in there. You know what, actually, and this goes for everybody watching, if you ever are handed a pre-roll, you probably shouldn't smoke it. You don't know what the fuck's in there. Don't smoke pre-rolls. But what you potentially could smoke is the actual bags of weed that they were handing out. So it seems as though they were unofficial sponsors of Paperboy the Prince, and they were handing out, it was really interesting, they were handing out bags of weed, joints. Here's a short little video from what was going down there. He was doing, Paperboy the Prince was doing like a puff pass.
This is great. Okay, who's next in line for our cipher? You're next in line? Yes. This is great. Okay, who's next in line for our cipher?
You know, pandemic's over. We're doing puff pass. And again, the unofficial sponsor here was just throwing bags of weed to the crowd.
Follow us on the gram, Well Rounded Buzz, baby.
Well, hold up. Shout out Well Rounded Buzz. It's a pretty fat sack right here. Hold up.
Let's go, baby.
Can I see the sack?
4 grams.
How's that sack?
4 grams.
They're smoking a 7-gram
No boom.
joint,
No
puff
boom.
passing that.
No.
No, you know. And actually, I'm gonna have a video coming up because I did shoot some interviews here. I have a lot better footage on my actual camera. The thing, and by the way, for those who aren't already following me on Twitter, go follow me on Twitter. My @ is Alad Eliyahu. It's my full name. You guys could follow me on Instagram too. My Instagram @ is barely informed with Alad. The reason you guys should follow me on those platforms is because when I do like on the ground reporting where I'm not interviewing people, I'll usually only post about it on Instagram or Twitter because it'll be kind of like a bullshit me, just first person recording some on the ground stuff. Sometimes I won't be able to get interviews and I won't make a video out of it, but it's still valuable coverage that I look for somewhere to post. I did also plan on covering the events that I don't do interviews and make videos for on these live streams so you could still see them, but it'd be really cool if you guys followed me there as well. There's going to be a YouTube video of this coming out within the next 2 days. I've just been really lazy and haven't edited it yet. So that was really cool. Paperboy the Prince hosted a really cool event. It was cool for me to go there. I enjoyed it because nobody was aggressive to me towards there. I was able to meet some of Paperboy the Prince's actual campaign staff, and given it's a stupid BS campaign that isn't going anywhere, it was still enjoyable to ingratiate myself with some of these guys who didn't immediately hate me. Another thing was that there were some other campaign staffers and people involved in some other political stuff that were there that I was able to kind of network with, and again, weren't immediately hostile towards me. And it was just really cool. It was cool to be looked at like a person and not immediately viewed as some sort of hostility. The one thing that did irk me about this was that there's so many actual issues. I'm stuck between these two thought processes, the culture war and things that people actually give a fuck about. This is like the culture war garbage. This is, this was literally a weed protest. Nothing, you could call weed and weed prohibition a political issue, but dude, we're dealing with a lot of actual issues like the coronavirus pandemic. Kids aren't being allowed to go to school. And, we're holding this little smoke out in front of City Hall. I mean, I like it because I like smoking weed, but at the same time, feels like you could be using the political capital for a more useful purpose than just, fucking around, smoking a bunch of weed. A bunch of the unofficial sponsors were really just drug dealers looking for more customers. Weed's legal now in New York, so there's nothing against those guys particularly, but it was pretty chill. This guy actually has his campaign office not too far from me. I'm going to go try to, peep his campaign offices because he's still... a lot of people follow Paperboy the Prince. A lot of people who are actually pretty far leftists. And another funny thing is that he was reposting a lot of my stories about him. I posted videos about him and he posted those videos. Where's one? Here he posted one of those. And I'm happy he did this. And I think it's really funny because a ton of the Democratic Socialists of America's type and, Antifa adjacent people, all those people follow this guy and they like this guy a lot. And just for them to be clicking through his stories and then just seeing my beautiful face and my little press card, that's my profile. Just to see this, I know triggers them so much. So I'm deeply satisfied to get some love from Paperboy too. I plan on stopping by his office to try to get an interview with him. It would be cool, but we'll see. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. Nice. And now there is one other quick story I wanted to mention to you guys, and then we could kind of shoot the shit and have a nice little half hour of a chill stream. I'll take some questions there because I know I haven't been interacting with chat too much. But where is it? I wanted to talk a little bit about my coverage, or not even my coverage, of what's been going on at Washington Square Park. So, for those of you who don't know, Washington Square Park is one of the more poppin' parks in Manhattan. It's in Lower Manhattan, and this Washington Square Park is kind of known for unofficially hosting college parties. The campus of NYU is down the block from Washington Square Park. A lot of youngsters are known for living around here. It's in the East Village by the Lower East Side. It's a chill area. It's a very chill area. There's parts of this park that are home to the park is a square, a corner of this park is always filled with homeless people. That's where the homeless people stay. A a lot of homeless people stay. A lot of people in this park use. I'm not going to say there's a lot of drug use in the park because I don't see a lot of people like shooting up. There's drinking that occasionally goes down. You'll see people smoking in the park. Smoking's legal now, so I don't know why that's an issue. But for the past, I want to say month, the NYPD has been enforcing a 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. curfew at Washington Square Park where they show up with actual riot cops to disperse people, not protesters. So they'll just disperse, regular people aggressively. There've been videos going around of cops, tossing people. And then different groups get involved as well. So when you're clearing the park, 75% of the park is just, teenagers or regular people. Then another certain percentage is, the homeless people that live in the corner. And then once, the activists, the social justice warriors, protesters, actual protesters, see what's going on in the park, they decide to show up too to try to further agitate the situation. So as recent as Saturday night, they were clearing the park, but I'm not a fucking loser, so I wasn't spending my Saturday night covering, some fringe closing of a park. I was getting drunk on Saturday like I should be, not covering BS events. But they tossed a lot of people out of the park then, so there was going to be a similar curfew on Sunday last night, which I decided to cover because I wanted to see what was going on because it's making the news rounds. I wanted to go through some of that coverage with you guys now. So I tweeted here at, I think this was 15 minutes before curfew. Washington Square Park has a 10 p.m. curfew tonight, and 15 minutes away from that curfew, the park is pleasant and lively with people. It was popping. People were having a good time. You guys hear the volume? Yeah, so I don't know how much you could tell because it's relatively dark here, but people were just chilling. There were a lot of people, again, not protesters, regular people. And then I've tweeted another video of as the curfew passes. So curfew just passes. Haven't spotted any cops. There's the Washington Arches. There's the fountain. Again, 100 plus, probably close to the 300-400 people throughout the entire park. As the curfew actually passes, it turns into a party. People start partying. I'm going to shut the volume off of that because I don't want to get... Actually, it's a party. We're rocking out to Mo Bamba. And again, there's no cops for as far as I can see. I couldn't find a cop. I would go like a block out of the park. There would be no cops. Here's some young gentlemen dancing and enjoying their time at the park. Okay, let's see some of these dance moves. You guys gotta wait for the end of this. You got some dance moves. And here they do the leg thing. Look at this guy. Look at this white guy. Look at the difference between this one white guy. Look at his little kick dance compared to this other guy's kick dance. Alright, so yeah, it was actually really chill. It was really chill. This is a little bit past 10, but here's where shit gets murky, and here's where I start having a bad time. Immediately after, not immediately after this, I don't know, sometime after this, I want to say sometime around 10:30, I was approached by a well-masked individual that was wearing sunglasses and kind of insisted that I admit that I'm Alad. He comes up to me, goes, "Oh, are you Alad?" I go, "No." Obviously, I'm not trying to, like... In certain situations, I'll admit when it's me, but when I know I'm at a place where people potentially don't like me and you're heavily masked up with your sunglasses at fucking 10:30 and your mask when nobody else at this event was wearing a mask, obviously very sketchy. So we kind of go back and forth a little bit. He asks me who I am. I give him a fake name. He gives me a fake name. And then he starts pressuring me. He starts fucking talking to me in Hebrew. Like saying, "Achi, ani ozor lecha, I'm helping you. I'm on your side. Look, like I'm speaking Hebrew. Look, like he tried to Jew me. He tried to, bro, we're a part of the tribe, He tried to pull one of those on me. Little does he know that if somebody starts speaking Hebrew to you, likely means they're Jewish or Israeli, and it means you should keep an eye out for them. If somebody's coming up to you trying to speak Hebrew to you, that means they're likely an Israeli, which means they're likely trying to rip you off. You know, I'm aware of my own kind. I'm very aware of my own kindness, so to speak. So after refusing to admit it, it's me, I asked him about why he's so heavily concealed and masked up. And he said it's because of people like you. So that's when I knew the jig was up, because that was sort of his slip. Like he was still trying to act like after that he was still trying to act like my buddy, but he said, you know, because of people like me, because he knew who I was and I knew who he was, or what he was a part of. So, you know, shortly after that, I kind of get up and begin walking off and saying, like, after continuing and denying, I'm like, well, I'm not this guy, like, you know, good luck finding whoever you're looking for, and peace. So, like, I walked away, like, halfway through the park. The dude skates up to me again, and, like, at this point, I'm not like worried. I'm like completely relaxed, just in the mind of being mindful of needing to respond, because, you know, when we were sitting next to each other, like when the first time he approached me, you know, we were staring at each other, looking at each other in the eyes. He knows I'm lying who I am. You know, I know he's lying about who he is, and we're just staring at each other. I see him fucking holding his skateboard. I'm staring at the skateboard. I'm looking at him. Like, my arms are tense. We're just kind of sizing each other up, and, you know, who even knows? You never know if you need to preemptively strike. You never know what's going on. I know I have the feeling that other people are watching me, and actually, in both of our heads, we're kind of like 50-50. He doesn't know if it's me. I'm not 100% sure that he's a piece of shit trying to target me. So, you know, we're kind of just feeling each other out, but, you know, I'm also concerned about other people around me. So after I walk away from him during the initial encounter, he skates to me, apologizes profusely, insists he's on my side, and then insists that I don't need to be worried. I continue denying that I'm me just because he's unsure. And, you know, again, speaks to me in Hebrew some more. I tell him I'm still not him. And then he's just like, all right. And then, you know, shortly after I leave the park, that stuff irked me. Shortly after I tweeted this, one of the accounts on Twitter that is known to watch Antifa, you know, that are in their Telegram channels. Telegram is an anonymous group chat, or it's an anonymous messenger app that you could have group chats in. There's people, you know, activists and people who are engaged in these Telegram chats. And then there's Antifa Watch, somebody who views these chats to see what they're going on about. And apparently, right after I tweeted this, Antifa Watch tweeted at me showing me that there are Telegram chats that, you know, people are targeting me in Telegram. So they say known agitator and streamer a lot is at the park. And they just talk about me, you know, and I don't know if there was more to it, but this is all I was sent by Antifa Watch. So it unsettled me that, you know, not only do they have an eye on me, but they're sending their capo Jews after me, right? They're sending my own kind after me. They're sending my own kind. They're like, oh, Alad's Jewish. He speaks Hebrew. Let's go send a Hebrew guy after him. Speak Hebrew to him. Try to get him to feel comfortable. It is a little bit ironic, too, because, listen, these guys dislike me for a lot of reasons. They say a lot of things about me. They call me a fascist, a white supremacist, all this bullshit, slander, garbage. But if we're being honest, there's one thing. The one thing that actually bothers these people about me, the one thing that they actually hate about me that is actually legitimate is that I support Israel, that I'm a Zionist. That's what they hate about me. All else doesn't matter. All else is just a smear. That fascist stuff, they don't even actually believe it. But the one thing that they will hold against me powerfully and aggressively, that I wear proudly, is that I'm a Zionist. So there was that. After this, I was, you know, obviously, I know I'm part of the chosen people, and they made me feel like a chosen person here by keeping these eyes on me. But there's one other known agitator that I know colludes with these protesters. This is an activist, an Antifa sympathizer. that I wanted to make known that I am aware of. So there's this activist by the name of Talia Jane, and she often smears me. And I made a joke here that she makes kill lists for Antifa. I don't actually believe that, but the joke here is that all the far leftist activists will smear Andy No by saying that Andy No makes kill lists for Nazis because he reports on Antifa activities. So if we go by the same standard, Talia actually makes kill lists for Antifa because all of her followers are Antifa activists. Many of her followers are Antifa activists, and she smears me and puts me at risk. Again, if we're going by the same stupid standards that they set. So she tweets out that she heard a disinfo merchant, this she's talking about me, came through, took some footage, made up a hilarious lie, and then left before posting the footage because he was scared to be recognized. So the hilarious lie that she's saying that I made up is what I told you guys earlier about being approached by the capo. The thing is, her source in Black Bloc, who is, aggressively masked up, came up to her, and her Antifa source said it doesn't happen. That's what essentially happens here. She calls me a disinfo merchant to her followers that she know that I cover the events. So I go on to say, Talia smears me as someone who spreads propaganda, supposedly to a base of white nationalists, supremacists, and bigots, publicly to her activist followers, who say they'll be happy to see me dead. So in this tweet, Talia tweets out, turns out that that's just always what he wanted. He never viewed me or any other press's colleagues. I do view other press's colleagues. Other press know that I view them as colleagues. I don't view Talia as a colleague because Talia is an activist who works to smear and out reporters who are on the ground. But as competitors, he can push against to rally his base of white nationalists, supremacists, and bigots in pursuit of glory. So again, she's smearing me this to her activist followers who organize in New York, which will lead to violence against me. Her followers, when she tweets out that Ian Miles Chong is a piece of shit, Ian Miles Chong tells me when I tweet this out that they'll only be happy to see me dead. And Talia's followers says Chong is finally correct because this is actually what they think. Again, this is the hilarious lie. And this isn't an isolated incident. This isn't an isolated incident of Talia smearing on the ground reporters and putting their lives at risk with people in Antifa that I know she works with, because Talia has a history of outing videographers during civil unrest where reporters are known to be at risk. In the past, she's actually assisted Antifa in outing reporter James Klug. I think some of you guys are familiar with James Klug. James Klug is sort of this another on-the-ground reporter who does some really good work. If you aren't following him, look up James Klug. I'm not going to pull up his social media because his name's really easy and in English. You're not going to mess it up like my name. It's real as James Klug. On YouTube, it's James Klug. Instagram, it's James Klug as well. But in the past, she's tweeted out, heads up Tacoma, this chud, which is essentially, it's... A chud is a way to say a Trump supporter, and a Trump supporter is a way for lefties to call people fascists. So, she's warning the people who are rioting and destroying things in Tacoma. This happened months ago. After Klug tweets out that multiple Antifa members are carrying spray paint and vandalizing property, she tweets out that James is reporting on this, and then she tweets out that, so this is trying to get people to find James and is putting James's life at risk. And then here she says, hearing that on the ground protesters were alerted and found him and are attempting to block the camera quick. So Talia has proven to collude with Antifa in the past. She is an Antifa sympathizer. She smears not only right-wing reporters, but just any reporter she doesn't approve of. She gatekeeps reporting. And again, if you step out of line, she will smear you. And then the activists who follow her will pick up on those smears and target you. Not only that, this is only the things that Talia is showing to do publicly. Talia is also known to be in many of these different Antifa Telegram group chats, and I can almost guarantee you that she was in the group chat that people were posting about me in. So, this girl's a true piece of shit. it's funny because she actually used to DM me all the time, trying to pretend as though she sympathizes with me and cares about me and has my best interest in mind. She would like ask me about all these things, but really just trying to manipulate me to get more information out of me. At one time, she tweeted at me about how she like envisioned us in like a rom-com about her being an anarchist and me being a Zionist. Some really creepy stuff, but it really goes to show the duality of the mentally ill. While at one second they're literally fetishizing you being a Zionist, and in another they're literally trying to organize, you know, Antifa extremists against you. So it's really sad. It's unfortunate. Again, I'm not necessarily scared. Not necessarily. I'm not scared for my safety because I don't think I put myself at much risk at all. I think I'm, you know, very responsible. I understand there are certain risks that come with the coverage that and reporting that I decide to do. However, in the grand scheme of shit, I understand completely that relative to other jobs, my job is pussy shit. You know, they're officers. You know, our officers are some of the bravest is a braver occupation than what I do. There are a ton of issues with officers that we could talk about another time, but their job is definitely more dangerous than mine. Going to fight in any war is definitely more dangerous than anything I do. I think a lot of hard labor is probably more dangerous than a lot of shit I do. So I just wanted to put that stuff in perspective. I'm not a victim here. It's just some freaking losers online talking a little bit of shit. That's definitely something I could handle. But thank you guys for your concerns. Like, you know, so that was the good stuff. Did I cover everything I wanted to? Thoughts on the Fauci emails, pop protests, riot cops at Washington Square Park? That's the general gist. I could show you actual videos of like what was going on at Washington Square Park. The reason why I decided to cover this after the fact, this is other reporters' videos right now. So again, for the past few weekends, Washington Square Park, which almost never has enforced closings, has been closing early, enforced by NYPD's Strategic Response Group, which is the riot cops. Washington Square Park is home to many homeless, and it seems as though one was swinging a bottle towards officers. So shit was getting a little bit crazy on Saturday. Here's a video of that. Again, this isn't a protester. This is just a random homeless person. So. So just to get you guys a sort of vibe for what was actually going on, here's another one of, this is a protester now arguing with police. I wanted to show you this too, just to understand, you know, how tense the night got.
Cop watch, you do need help in New York. This is insane.
Don't fucking touch me! I'm sick of you fucks touching me for no fucking reason! Don't touch me! I'm sick of it! I'm fucking sick of it! Not one day where it was legal for me to kill you, I'd fucking slice all your throats and eat your
I don't know if you guys caught that at the end, but she goes, if one day it were legal to kill you, I'd fucking slice all your throats. You know, so there's a lot of banana shit that goes on. Again, and this is me trying to be a master marketeer. Sometimes you get some exclusive content on the Instagram and Twitter page, so be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is barely informed with Alad, which I will post in the chat, and my Twitter is at Alad Eliyahu. And more liable to answer there. So yeah, that's what's been going on. You guys are going to be getting the pot protest video Monday or Tuesday. I haven't started editing it yet, but I've been putting more effort into my edits, so that might take a little bit longer. Let's take, I got some super chats from my fabulous followers. Thank you for everybody who supports the channel. While I don't want to belabor the point of the channel's finances, I wanted to remind you guys that most of my videos are completely demonetized, and I make more money on these live streams when I'll get like a handful of super chats for $10 than all of my videos combined. I make You know, if I get 10,000 views on a demonetized video, I'll maybe get $10. But that won't stop me. Again, your super chats are extremely helpful. A long story short, thank you for your super chat, said, can you get in touch with mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa for an interview? A long story short, thank you for the super chat. Yes, I can. I actually already have been. I've reached out to Curtis multiple times. It's been like a month since the first time I reached out to him. I'm in back and forth emails with one of like his campaign staffers or somebody who supposedly works closely with him, but they just haven't been very responsive or been giving me bullshit answers. I understand Curtis Sliwa just had like his debate like not too long ago, so he's been busy with that shit. But, you know, the interview I was looking for is 20 minutes, and Curtis Sliwa definitely has 20 minutes. I feel as though he's ducking me a little bit. Maybe that's just me being sensitive. I am a sensitive guy, but I will continue to try to get that interview because I think, you know, we can have a valuable conversation. Thanks for the super chat, though, and I am actively trying to get that interview with Curtis. Ideally, I'd have a longer form, too, because that's kind of what I'm trying to pivot into. It would be nice to have a nice 20, 30-minute convo with Curtis, not, you know, a shitty 5-minute. Thanks again for the super chat. Miles Kinslow, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, hey, Alad, do you have a merchandise store? Wish you the best. Thank you, Miles, so much for the super chat. I don't currently have a merchandise store. When I got it started doing YouTube, I used to watch YouTube videos before that, obviously, too. But I always thought it was silly when creators had merchandise stores when they only had, like, a few followers. I was going to wait to hit 100K before I, you know, made a little merchandise store or what have you. But shit, man, as these months pass and that 100K seems more and more bleak and harder to get to, I might have to drop that merchandise store a little bit sooner. Thank you for your super chat. I'll think about doing something sooner. Again, maybe we'll grind a little bit harder on the channel to try to hit 100K to motivate me to make the store. But hey, if I get enough nice messages like that about you guys wanting merch, well, we'll have to do something like that. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. You don't have to only do them in super chats, but you could drop them in chat as well. Let's see. Jennifer Glenn, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. She says, nice seeing you live again. Laura L is a follower on Medi platform. She says, thank you a lot. Laura, thank you so much for following the content. Let's see. Mike Dalla says, do you have a day job? I used to have a day job about a year ago that was a little bit on and off, but no, I actually do this full time. I started doing this full time, and shortly after the pandemic happened, there were still protests during that time, but protests that were more difficult for me to get interviews at. When I'm not able to get interviews at events, I typically just do the first person shots and like on the ground reporting because I still think those are very valuable to do. And again, I usually post those on Twitter and Instagram though, which is why you guys should follow me there. But in the same vein, I plan on doing these live streams more often. I did one like 2 weeks ago. Ideally, I'd start doing it every other day because I do have a lot of topics I do want to get to. But until, you know, I build the courage to do that every other day or find more topics to talk about, you know, we're chugging along here. Jennifer, thank you so much for the super chat. Jennifer's been a follower of the channel for a very, very long time and is one of those names that I recognize. So thank you so much for that. Mr. Brawl96 says, I live in NYC. Think we could be friends, want to hang. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm not going to say yeah. I'm going to say maybe. I've become so fucking paranoid, bro. I get so paranoid. Let me tell you guys another quick story. Like last week, I was at the gym. I went to the gym. I don't know if you guys could tell, but it's not as beautiful as it used to be. But anyway, I went to the gym, and then after the gym, I fell a victim to my addictions to Taco Bell. And there's a Taco Bell on my way home from my gym. So I stop at my Taco Bell, I go inside, I order my stuff, and I'm like, as I'm waiting for my food, an employee comes up to me, like he's on the phone, kind of just staring at me, and I'm just kind of double taking at him. And when somebody stares at me, I get extremely uneasy because I don't know, you never know if it's the wrong person. And like, I'm just like kind of double taking him. I can anticipate now him saying like, he's about to say, oh, are you Alad? At this point, I didn't deny it. He was a fan, but like, I get so paranoid. I don't know. Nowadays, I'm out and about. When I'm at an event, I'll look around. Sometimes people will give me those eyes, and I'll just be so uneasy. But in the same vein, you know, a lot of those times there are women giving me those eyes, and I could be missing those, you know, those opportunities at, you know, my wifey just because I'm so paranoid. So I don't know where to go with that. Anyway, Mr. Brawl, send me a DM. It's a hard maybe. Thanks so much for the super chat, the $420 super chat. Nate B says, thanks for covering NYC events. Always fun to watch. Thank you guys so much for your support. I know I've said this before, but you guys are what helps me continue to provide this type of coverage. It's awesome that you guys find value in my coverage. I find value in my coverage because I'm full of myself. You know, I like to talk about how nobody else at these events covers it the way I do, and they will often give you a very heavily edited account of what happened and then not release videos that make them look bad. I've kind of become a person in the area that people will actually leak video to because activists' accounts won't post about them. And, like, obviously other content where it's protesters looking bad or even cops looking bad and one side or another not being willing to post it. So thank you for your super chat. Your funding is literally going directly to help continue that reporting. Paul M says, do you have a Venmo or ETH address? How can we support other than super chat? Great question. Other ways you could support is on my Patreon, or I do have a Venmo account. DM me on Instagram because I'm too lazy to look it up right now and confirm. Maya Papaya. Thank you so much for the super chat. Parvardi says, hi, you're cute. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I'd follow you on Twitter, but Twitter is violating my human rights. I would buy an Alad merch Kipo. Ooh, that's something good to keep in mind. Roy Hazuki says, what are your thoughts on Yair Lapid? Yair Lapid is an Israeli politician whose father was, I forgot what position his father was, but this guy, Yair Lapid, was, you know, born into this cushy lifestyle where he was be able to, you know, come up in the media industry in Israel and then became sort of this establishment liberal wing in Israel and now managed to form a coalition with Arabs and part of the far right in Israel to oust Netanyahu. I think there's just so much to talk about there. And I would like to have not an Israeli person, but like somebody who knows more about Israeli politics with me when I delve into that topic, just so I don't sound so stupid when talking about it. But what are my general thoughts about him? He's like an American Joe Biden, for a lack of a better comparison. He's just kind of a run-of-the-mill lib in Israel who's able to form a coalition and become prime ministers. I can't read your name. AP something says, what time are the live streams usually? Man, there is no consistent time when the live streams are usually. I'm only now trying to do them consistently. I want to do them multiple times a week. If they're too late in the day, it's like I've already went to the gym or I've already done something to fatigue me and make me tired and then makes me want to take a nap. So I am a little bit biased towards wanting to do them early in the day when I'm a little bit more clear-headed. But it could be any time. I'm sorry. I don't have a consistent time. But I plan on doing these more often. And if you don't catch it when it's live, you'll be able to catch the replays. Otherwise, after a few months of doing this, a couple of months, I hope I get more consistent with timing. Davey J said, just asked to leave my restaurant job because I wasn't wearing a mask over my mouth and nose, looking for a job. I'll move almost anywhere in the U.S. Davey J, I'm sure if you wanted, there's actually a lot of open jobs in New York. Although I am my own boss, I don't have anybody to hire. So I'm sorry I can't help you out. But I'm really sorry to hear about your situation getting fired for that. I stopped wearing masks in any indoor places, Subway, restaurant, gym, bodega, and I've been doing that for the past few weeks as a vaccinated person. Even if I was not vaccinated, I don't think I should be forced to wear a mask regardless. But then if the people in the store ask me to leave, I also believe they have that right. And I've maybe been asked to leave maybe like, it happened to me twice in the past like few weeks I've been doing this, or they've asked me to put on a mask, and then I asked them to provide me with one, because if you want me to wear a mask in your store, then you should provide me with one. And then when both these stores couldn't, I just said, all right, then I guess I'm gonna leave. And that's the way it's gotta fucking be too. We can't pussyfoot around this forever. I forgot who said this specifically, but if you believe as a law or a rule is unjust, it's almost your obligation to break that rule or law. Internet God, also one of the loyal followers, says, for God's sakes, never meet any of the lunatics on here. Somebody said, just don't become a total hack grifter and I'll still be a fan. I think I'm the opposite of a hack grifter. And I think half the time, more often than not, I have more things to complain about people on the right than I do on the left. And I feel like that's a product of me just watching more shit on the right and paying more attention to shit on the right than shit on the left. So I pay more attention to like Tim Pool being an idiot than I would maybe like Kyle Kalinske being an idiot. And then, like, I have more bad things to say about James O'Keefe doing garbage reporting and being a marketeer and not an actual journalist, as compared to, you know, me bitching about the people over at Media Matters or something like that. I've been on the record before saying that I think right-wing people deserve better than Newsmax. Right-wing people deserve better than James O'Keefe. Right-wing people deserve better than the MyPillow guy. Because what are their equivalents on the left? The work that James O'Keefe does on the right is nothing compared to the work that the Daily Beast does on the left. So the way the Daily Beast actually finds out insider info about people working at Fox and gets direct quotes and has actual sources doing legitimate reporting, even though I may not like it, as opposed to James O'Keefe stuff where he's just sending in hot babes to fucking bars with low-level CNN loser employees who are willing to say whatever to get laid. I've been there. Trust me, you can't get any reliable info from men at a bar with hot chicks that they're trying to get with, you know, and to just cut that up into like 5-second increments and then just splice all these things together. Right-wing people deserve better, not to mention that these people are funded by big right-wing sources. Again, that leaves me feeling uneasy. That's not to say James O'Keefe hasn't done any good work, but the best work that he's done has actually not been this undercover stuff. The best work Project Veritas has ever done was them getting leaked a video of an ABC journalist saying that they didn't want to cover the Jeffrey Epstein story because their superiors were telling them not to, or something along those lines. So that was a nice little take. I don't understand how people can actively oppress truth while simultaneously believing they represent the moral side of the argument. Well, there's a lot of motivated reasoning, and this is why I try not to get... I don't know if you guys could tell, but I'm not an overwhelmingly deeply ideological person. When people, I think, do become deeply ideological, they're more likely to malign somebody who is innocent, and they are more willing to, again, actively oppress the truth or conceal the truth as a means to an end. So if they think the ends justify the means. So who cares that a Jewish trans person was assaulted by an Arab at a Free Palestine event after yelling, "I'm not a Zionist"? You know, if the ends justify the means. If that makes their movement look bad, then it's really not worth it. Zachary M says, are you still doing frontline reporting? Love your work. Keep up the good work. I still do a ton of on-the-ground reporting, and I love it. I love doing on-the-ground reporting. I love the fucking thrill. I've become addicted to the thrill of being out there and, like, being around protesters and the loud cheers and like, a line of cops and commotion and, like, hearing the LRAD while telling everybody this is an unlawful assembly and, looking around and people looking at me and having my boy right here, backing me up. And it's just, you get addicted to the kind of thrill of it. So... Mr. Ball says, would you ever take call-ins, or is that setup still too tough? I would definitely take call-ins. I actually looked into the setup for like 30 minutes one time months ago. It was a little bit over my head, but there's no reason for me not to expand in the future. Again, these are the early versions of the live streams that I do want to start doing more regularly. So there's no reason I shouldn't be able to do that. One thing that I was going to try to focus on, though, was I don't know if I wanted to do them live or not, but longer form interviews with people. Not like big names, but like low names, like D-list YouTubers, like these low people, these up and coming people, because these top guys are impossible to get a hold of. So it would be nice to have these nice sit down 20, 30, 40, 50 minute conversations, maybe live, maybe not, with people with political takes. What's up, Josiah? Josiah's a fan of the show. Somebody asked if I'm actually vaxxed. I've been vaxxed since fucking March. Because I got the hookup. Gabrielle, thank you so much for your super chat. Gabrielle super chat reads, one of the most forthright, fiercest, and uncompromising characters I've seen on this site. Truly an inspiration. Just never let it go to your head. Gabrielle, thank you so much. I try extremely hard to stay humble, and a lot of what, your compliments actually mean a lot to me because I work really hard in trying to not be biased. I think a lot of parts of my audience on certain platforms, like on Instagram, my audience is more right-wing on Instagram, and there's always a lot of creators won't tell you this, but they will feel a pull to give their audience what they want. So many right-wing content creators are willing to whitewash and downplay the events of January 6th and downplay certain influencers' roles in the Stop the Steal rally, because, they're willing to compromise their values. They're willing to compromise they're willing to advance a narrative that they know is false because they fear being punished, vocally losing followers on different social media platforms. There's been a few times where, like, I've definitely recognized that doing or saying a certain thing on my social media definitely doesn't play into part of the audience I've developed. But part of having integrity is fighting against that and not just giving and telling people what they want to hear. And I consider myself a reporter, not a panderer. If I was a panderer activist, then that would be different. And that's why I call people out who are activists. At this time, at least at this time, I'm not an activist and do believe I do accurate, genuine reporting. Somebody said, let's see. A lot of people talking about the pillow guy. I remember talking, I had an interview with the pillow guy once, and I posted it on my channel, or I posted it on my Instagram. People were not pleased. But also, guess what? Like, the pillow guy is one of the big funders for a lot of these, like, low-level and up to the even high-level influencers. My Pillow's contribution to Fox News' ad revenue is not irrelevant. My Pillow's funding of these low-level influencers who, like, say, use promo code ME to get, the discount on the pillow shit. This funding is not irrelevant. It managed is to have it works as an in for the My Pillow guy, and now the My Pillow guy is suing different. He's been engaging in all of these lawsuits, essentially as a marketing ploy. He knows these lawsuits aren't going anywhere, but he wants his name in the headlines, and he's doing this. He's marketing at the manipulatively marketing himself as this sort of savior of Trumpism and MAGA at the cost of our actual democracy. And guess what? I don't even fucking know what this guy thinks is actually true in his head. Like, that's the thing. I don't even actually know how crazy he is. I don't know which people are actually, actually buying the shit that they're selling. So it's a really crazy time out here. I don't have a My Pillow. Mark E., thank you so much for the super chat, says a lot is needed. Well, thank you, and I am provided by my generous super chatters like you and my generous audience overall. I'm not sure if any of you guys are Patreon subscribers, but I have like 25 Patreon subscribers that have been there for a year or so, and they've actually been extremely supportive. So shout out to any Patreon supporters in the chat. There's only 25 of you, so I don't know if any of you are here. Daniel Williams says, do you have professional security when reporting on the street? No, I don't. But the thing is, oftentimes, like when I am threatened, or fans will see a video where people do come up and threaten me, or it does look like I am put at risk, I'll always get a handful of messages saying like, hey bro, I love your work, let me come be your kind of security. But I don't want to contribute to an atmosphere of, you know, being bellicose or for shit to pop off, because guess what, I bring a couple of my guys, they get defensive over your boy. So a guy gets in my face, one of my very defensive fans who, you know, I have a lot of there are a lot of people who have, you know, very soft spots for me. You come up to me the wrong way, you run up on me the wrong way. I don't want somebody who cares about me, you know, preemptively striking, potentially at risk. More people usually only makes more of a commotion and more of a crowd. It's complicated, and so that I'm trying not to fan the flames here. But at the same time, that's at my safety that I'm compromising. But, you know, a lot of things to consider there. Brandon Johnson, thank you so much for your super chat, too. I've wanted to ask you this for a while, but is there anyone who you'd say specifically affected or shaped your interview style? Yes and no. I think part of... I want to say to a small degree, some mainstream reporters have influenced my thoughts on how I report. One of the guys who I think is actually relatively unpopular that I actually watch pretty regularly and I think does a really good job is Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace has been in the game for a very long time. I think he does a really good job. But I draw maybe 10% inspiration from him. I don't draw too much inspiration from too many news or media figures, because I think a part of the problem with our media is that we're so in our own fucking bubble. And the more of the bubble that I'm out of, the more I'm able to think of things in a context that a regular American is more likely to think of it in, if that makes sense. And I guess the biggest thing that's obviously affected my interview style is experience. If you guys watch a video from a year ago, 2 years ago, I sound very, very different. People are talking a little bit about how the election was stolen or rigged. There's a ton to say about that, and I actually have a whole live stream that I want to talk about that. But one of the central contentions here that I'm most angry about is how we define rigged. Because some people will say rigged means literal changing of the ballots. Some people think rigged means mail-in ballots, because again, the 2020 election was the first election where we had wide-in mail-in ballots. Some other people say the election was rigged because of the media coverage of the election, and leading up to the election, all the smears that were made about Donald Trump. While I may agree with you on the last one, that's such a disgusting and disingenuous use of the word rigged. So when people are saying stop the steal, I've heard people argue that, yeah, we're saying that in the way that the media is putting forward and smearing Trump. That's the way it was rigged. It's just there's a sliding spectrum here of what people actually constitute and say is rigged. As I understand, most of the court cases were tossed out. Trump's appointed Attorney General at the time, William Barr, said there wasn't enough evidence to conclude that there was enough voter fraud to overturn the election. And again, this isn't to say that there was zero voter fraud. There is voter fraud in literally every single election. The question comes down to, is there enough evidence of voter fraud to overturn the election? Trump would need to have overturned like 3 or 4 elections, or 3 or 4 different states to have, overturned the actual election. And look, I'm happy to see the fucking evidence, but if we're being led by self-aggrandizing people like, who was it? Who was the original guy? He helped the Covington kid. I forgot his name. He's a lawyer. And then there was this also the female lawyer. Oh, I forgot their names. Shit, look how bad of a fucking analyst I am. I can't remember these guys' names. All right, you guys. I'm just gonna have to. Never mind. I just forgot. I just forgot the names. I'll let you know if I find it in chat. Tall Man says, Alad, I know you've mentioned it in some ancient video, but what is your naming again? In Hebrew, my name means God forever. Somebody said Chris Wallace. I just threw up. Yeah. So Luke Herdon, I'm sorry, I'm kind of blind, I can't read that name, said, I would love to hear your thoughts on new voting laws, whether you think they're encouraging voter suppression. I don't think these new voter laws are encouraging voter suppression. And oftentimes when you hear politicians talk about that, like, you hear, like, so all states have different voting laws, and if you require more identification for, you know, if your aim is to secure an election, any amount in a certain state, Democrats in other states will say that, you know, you're trying to, you're encouraging voter suppression, when even in their own states, it might be already more difficult to vote than it is in a state where they're changing their voter laws. I'm sorry if that came out a little butched. Here, somebody fucking, these are the names I was looking for. Linwood and Sidney Powell. So, like, look, I don't draw too much. I don't have a picture of Sidney Powell and Linwood on my wall, and I don't wake up every morning saying, thank God for Linwood and Sidney Powell, and they're such blessed individuals who tell the truth, because I think they're actually kind of full of shit. I actually wake up and take a beautiful look at the American flag and think about how thankful I am to be in this country. Hey, John Hoke, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, man. This is going to be the last question I take because it's I'm going to go on a little bit of a spiel on it. But X Baldwin X says, who did you vote for in this last election? So I actually have never voted in an election. I had the opportunity to vote in a few elections and considered it. But the reason I didn't is because I think there's a certain amount of integrity that reporters should hold themselves to. And even though they may be biased, there's a difference between, you know, holding some of your biases close and having it affect your reporting and actually trying to be objective when you're covering stuff. So I think it's too apparent of subjectivity to actively to vote in elections. How am I supposed to fucking trust any reporter? How am I supposed to trust you? My thought process, at least, is how am I supposed to trust you as a reporter covering anything on any political topic if I know you voted for a certain person, therefore I know you obviously have it in the bag for them? I think through my coverage, it's clear that I don't necessarily I'm not pulling for Trump. I get accused of pulling for Trump very often, but I think if you watched my coverage of Trump rallies, and even specifically the Stop the Steal rally, you'd be hard pressed to call that, you know, pro-Trump coverage. But I guess what my point is here is you cannot trust a mother trucker if, you know, the same people who are writing articles about how good certain candidates are and others aren't. How am I supposed to trust that person when they're engaging in the election? And now I'm going to sound like a little bit of a hypocrite here because I did register. This is my dirty secret. Here. I'm actually registered to vote locally here on the city level. I recently registered as a Democrat. I registered as a Democrat because the Republicans have no chance of winning. I haven't decided if I was going to vote for it, but I was considering voting. And when, you know, you have to be registered to vote to even have the chance to. So I registered to vote because I'm considering voting because I know the Republicans will lose in the general, so the general, it doesn't even matter what the Republicans do. And the only way to really have your voice heard or have it mattered in New York City is to vote and influence the Democratic primaries, which is actually a tight race. And there's actually a spectrum in the Democratic Party of relatively right-wing and relatively left-wing. So I was considering, you know, joining in that race. I also have a soft spot for Andrew Yang, who's built this interesting coalition of Asians and Jews in the city. I don't know why nobody's been talking about it, but Andrew Yang is literally building the new coalition of Asians and Jews. So I've never voted. I guess if you looked at the voter registration rules right now, you'd find I'm actually a registered Democrat, but I'm actually not. I'm again too internally conflicted to actually vote for the first time. So, with that being said, I wanted to thank everybody who tuned in to the live stream for doing so. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. I'm still relatively new to this and practicing finding my voice exactly how I want to sound on the show here. Thank you to all the super chatters. If you guys haven't already subscribed, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you guys aren't following me on other social media platforms, you're missing out on a lot when I'm not on here. I do plan on hosting a lot of these live streams more regularly. I'm trying to hold myself to 2 a week. 2 a week would be really cool. Even more would be better. I also want you guys to be on the lookout either Tuesday or Wednesday for the interviews from the smokeout protest that I showed you guys some clips from earlier today. Again, thank you all the super chatters. Thank you all the viewers. Thank you all the followers on different social media platforms. This was a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys had a good time as well. Until next time, stay barely informed.